Pro Media professional live streaming service. Experience the difference when it's live. Pro Media provides you a complete range of live and demand streaming solutions, no matter what your special event may be. Weddings, funerals, concerts, press conferences, conventions, seminars, workshops, meetings, religious events, and more. For more information, call 669-5376 or 609-5264. Experience the difference when it's live.
So, welcome again to this episode of Mixed Essence. Today we are discussing the stages of marriage, and I have two special guests with me to delve a little into this topic. We have a constant feature in season one, Mr. Ezzie Crandon. Thank you for being here with us, Ezzie.
Thank you, Liana.
Right, thank you. And for her inaugural episode of Mixed Essence, we have Latoya Arthur Tucker, who is a counseling psychologist. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So we're discussing stages of marriage. Now, this is not something you generally hear when you are not married or thinking about marriage. What are these stages and why do we need to know this, really? Any thoughts, any ideas on any of the stages?
I'll let the lady go first.
Okay. Gentlemen.
All right. Thank you for being the gentleman, Ezzie. You asked two questions, right? If I recall, you said what are the stages and why do we need to have stages?
What are the stages and why is that information even important?
Okay. Awesome. So I start with the second question first.
Okay.
It is important for us to know that marriage has stages because many persons, after saying I do, they expect to be at a stage with the person who has said I do 40 years. Or they expect to reap the benefits, see the results, and enjoy everything that a person who has said I do so many years ago would be experiencing.
Right.
So I like to look at marriage like the growing child.
Okay.
Just as a child would have times in which they would have to go through certain processes, all of which are not necessarily comfortable.
Right.
If you look at the teething process, right? And then that same individual who went through the teething process has the process where they're in love and they experience all the things. Excellent. So, like marriage, there are stages. Like the growing child, there are stages. And there are 5 stages. You may find variations to the names of the stages depending on who is speaking about the stages.
Right.
But in essence, they all speak about the same things.
Okay.
And you might even find it having different time frames, but again, in essence, it's the one thing. So if you would want me to tell you what the 5 stages are, not a problem.
Ezzie, you want to jump in here or?
Okay, I can. I think I want to back up you with why people need to understand that life, in its essence, we go through different phases of life, and we must know that these phases are just natural.
Right.
First, you must know it's natural. So when you see these things happening out of the blue, you shouldn't think that you get due or something. And it's so easy to pull those things into when our relationships experience bad things, somebody bad, I mean, whatever. So those things are natural. And Latoya, like you rightly said, using the example of the child,
I like that.
that's what marriage is, and so first of all, I'm going to list 2 of them and I allow Latoya to carry. I'm not selfish person. And so first of all, when you get married, you right away you get into that stage there with that they call the honeymoon phase. And then as Latoya said again, people call it different things. So you probably call it the honeymoon stage or the stage where you just enjoy each other.
Lot of
In
passion.
my head, I was
Yeah, a
thinking
lot of
sex will be
passion.
the place.
No, I'm reaching it. Let me delve into it. And then boom, after that stage would have expired over whatever time because different people, different time frame for it. You then start to realize
You can't say
disillusion. They call it disillusion, but I say reality. You know, you start to wake up. You start to see the light. You know? So I allow you to
So Ezzie, at that stage is where persons start to use the term a whole lot. Consumer and consumer is two different things.
Oh yeah, of course.
love to use
I
it
never
within-
or I never know. I never for real? Are you for real?
Yes.
You know, those kind of things.
After that stage, then you have the post-struggle stage.
Oh,
because
yes.
after you realize that this is what I said I do too, you know, then we start realizing you contribute so much and this person brings so much. So there's always a post-struggle stage where you have a lot of fights and so on. And then there's the stability stage. And then the last stage, the
Yes, you
fifth
commit.
of them all, is a commitment
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't just jump in committed, so to speak. I really like the example you used with the growing child because you got adolescence that's uncomfortable.
Oh yes. Oh
There's
yes.
so much you navigate. That is marriage. So there is so you're saying there is no fixed time frame. It varies based on the couple. The honeymoon phase could last 5 years for some people, and it could be 2 months for somebody else before you get into the disillusionment phase. I'm not trying to hammer the nail on, but I think it's so important for people to realize that the stages are necessary. No matter who you get married to, it's unavoidable.
No matter your status either.
No matter your status or anything like that. Okay, so disillusionment. Let's think about that for a little. You said that that's the stage where it's like, oh my gosh, this is it, for real. Are there any tips or ideas on how to navigate? I know everybody is different and nuanced and everything, but general advice on how to navigate that stage. A lot of people run when they get there. In this culture that we live in, many people don't survive to the power struggle, or you might be somewhere between the disillusionment, power struggle, and then that's the end of it. How can we help ourselves? Because the only person you can control is you. How can we help ourselves to navigate those two very challenging stages? Any general tips or ideas?
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Did I answer the question?
I did.
Yes.
Yes.
When you said how can we help ourselves, because with marriage, if you do not know who you are, you're looking for trouble regardless of how passionate that first stage is. And many persons end up having more challenges than the natural state of the phase would be because of them not knowing who they are. I don't want it to be a case where we head back to the childhood stage, right, with the comparison. But imagine the teen who knows what they're about, but they just have to work through accepting all the different things that happen during their teenage years. That person is going to navigate it differently than the person who ain't know who to be, don't know where they're coming from, where they're going. Anything that passed, they blow with it. This is why it's important for us to know who we are. Having said that and having understood that communication is key. It is the key. It's very, very important. Many persons, because of poor communications, they exacerbate these challenges that happen at these particular two stages. come see me, come live with my Ezzie. Two different things. As we say yes, but then we also, if it's a case where we know that this is going to come, it's not as though we're going to sit with a pen and paper to write down the changes, but we will be better able to appreciate them when they happen.
So I want to jump in and add. I think too with the stages there is this transition. It doesn't just happen.
Right.
And so going over into stage 2 might be residue of stage 1, which can be very helpful because I feel like while you are coming to the end of your stage 1, there's so much that you should and would have learned that you need to do to keep the relationship that still needs to be done in stage 2. So while you sit and you talk, while you communicate and all of that, you cannot forget stage 1. So when we were talking earlier, I was eardropping when Latoya was talking about how children could be damaged and long-term damage. It's the same thing. So there are certain things that you learn that can have far-reaching, and especially for women who clutch on to feelings and experiences and things that they've learned in 1, definitely in 2, if applied properly, can help to quell.
Okay.
Because in conversation, while having conversation, definitely there are conflicts. And right away you talk about conflicts, people should recognize that conflicts are not bad.
Say that
Again, conflicts are not bad.
Okay.
And they're
It
inevitable.
will happen. It's inevitable. It will happen. But when it does, it's how you respond to them. So in the communication disillusionment phase, when you're having all of these conversations, it's imperative for us to recognize and understand and to appreciate. I know who I am. You may not know who you are, but I now have to be patient. I now have to have understanding because I want to know who you are, right? And I'm learning. I'm shocked, but I never knew. I want to now share an experience when I got married, and all the nice, all the thing with the wedding and all the fanciness went out, and my wife made the rice porridge as a meal. And I turned up home and so I'm looking, and then she showed me the rice pop. And there it is. I detest rice pop because I grew up on it all the time. I said, nah.
Okay.
And now,
Trigger you.
I am
Without trying.
I said nothing, but my wife went and put something else. And then we spoke about it.
Right.
This reaction. And then I think she didn't like the reaction too. You didn't tell me, though we were busy doing other things, friend. We didn't talk about this, but we're talking about it now. And we learned. And we learned. So that's my 2 cents here.
It's funny how we can, like you said, in the honeymoon phase, it's this, we're all coming with these unspoken expectations of each other.
Yeah.
For men that actually try to hold it up before they get married, it's like, oh, finally, all the sex on the planet kind of thing. And for women, it's, well, not all women, I'm generalizing here, of course. This fairy tale experience where all your needs that weren't met by the male figures in your life before are now. But people come loaded. We come loaded. And that's so important to remember. Nobody's coming to a marriage as a clean slate in a sense. We all have history. We all have orientation, nature, nurture, all the rest of it. Look at how that was a trigger for you. Yeah. And for her, she's thinking she's probably doing something all nice and cute. And, you're caught in that moment of feeling like, oh, this is a blast from the past that I don't want.
Yeah.
So I'm getting the importance of communication in navigating those phases. Because if you had held on to that and refused to have a conversation about it,
Oh yes.
the dynamics of that would have gone very different.
And just given just that incident gave rise to what else is there. What else do we need to talk about?
Right.
What else? What do you like?
Right.
Oh, what do you like? How do you like it? And so on and so forth. And I think in stage 1, it's an experience you want. And so you don't stop to look at how. But in stage 2, as you still do stage 1, some stage 1 activities, now you have to stop to give consideration to the how. And the when.
Right.
So when you could have been like a bunny rabbit in 1, in 2, you got to be responsible now.
Responsible.
For your with your energy and all of that, and even your resources.
Yeah. So, okay. Latoya said honeymoon stage, disillusionment, power struggle. I feel like a lot of people are living in the power struggle phase, especially with our cultural dynamics.
I think it's the most impactful one. So much so that even people giving remarks at your weddings, I know personally, I was told that our marriage was only going to last 1 year.
Oh, yeah.
That we were too poor.
Oh,
He said poor.
wow.
And I felt like part of how you respond to your life is based on what people say to you too. And so I'm wondering, I kept working like overtime to make sure I'd never reached to this.
Wrong.
Yeah. But that's another story for another time. But apart from that individual saying that, like I can see through my mind's eye that individual had to have dealt with that in their own marriage. Because the person my son was born in the first year of our marriage, and we were at a convention, and the person came. This is the second time. So the person came, I hope y'all are making much.
Oh my gosh. That's a picture of them, not you. You know that.
I know it's a picture of them, but it stuck with me.
Right.
It stuck with me.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, in my marriage, now you have external influences. So apart from those things that arise in those stages, Toya mentioned earlier about
She can help you here.
wait.
But I remember.
She was talking about the natural course of the stage.
Okay.
The natural course, and some people, because of exacerbation, they have to deal with more, and those come from external influences in love, friend, other people who marry that you line with, and so on. And all of those variables, they add up.
Right.
Depend on their influence and who they can influence at what time, and so on and so forth.
So then, Latoya, how important is it to protect that? Understanding for those that didn't understand. I'm thinking whether I really understood this when I got married. You don't think it's going to be as hard as it actually is. Because you don't know what you don't know, that kind of thing. How important is it to protect the voices in your ear?
And as you ask the question, I hope I didn't interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Okay. It's very important and necessary for us to tap into our individual selves. Appreciate our individuality.
Okay.
So, in your quiet moments, you sit and think, why do you do what you do? And if you have to be thinking too long on a response, and do a rain check on it is not something that is pretty much about you. Like if I asked you casually, why did you wear this color blouse today? If it's something that you may have wanted, you might have to get into that more to answer me. But then if 50 minutes pass and you still can't tell me why you wear that blouse, then it's something for you to think about. What are you looking for the response? Now, I'm saying that to say many persons get into marriage not necessarily with their expectations only, but with expectations of others. I heard a couple say when they got married, after the first week, they developed expectations for themselves. So what is it they would want to see? What is it will guide their marriage? Some persons believe, for me,
as in they did that as a couple?
Yes, as a couple. This would have been something that they were guided by their premarital counselor to do. So for our marriage, our premarital counselor did explain the stages and all the different things for us. But with my husband coming from a very rural community, he would not like me describing his community as rural, more so very. But that is the reality. So his mother would normally wake, as we say before, board wife wakes. So I made it very clear, I'm a city girl. So I'm not a part of the bird family. So you definitely won't expect me to be competing with the bird's wife. So setting that clear is last thing after we greeted each other to go sleep. And I fall asleep very easily, so I don't hear the greeting. But I would hear, what are we cooking tomorrow? And I never like that question. Because tomorrow reach yet? He asked about tomorrow. So that for us, we had to deal with. So with that being said, I said to him, instead of thinking I would be up to prepare breakfast, how about you do it? So he does breakfast, he would get up and he decides which family he's a part of to determine the time. But he decides, and that when persons see it and they have things to say about it, I made it clear, we're the talkers.
Right.
So you gotta appreciate what we do or you stay where you are. Correct. So many persons, because they're living the expectations of others, it makes the stage longer. It might not necessarily be longer in time, space, but the experience, the way you feel, like you've been in this for so long. And this is simply because of what you've allowed persons to do and say about you and for you also. Because there's some things you can do for yourself within your marriage. But because you want the clout associated with a certain person or you want to be favored, you allow them to do it when in truth, you need to do it. I want you to know the relationship I have with my husband, so I ask you to call him and give a message so that he says these nice things about me when I could call him myself. So if it so happens that he's not in the mood for the niceness, you happen to hear him grunt. And then you see me in a different light. You understand?
She's playing you marriage process.
Exactly. Yes. And that gives me an unnecessary weight that I put on myself. Because if I had called, I would have known that it's the time of the day that when he eat, he's sleepy and he won't talk to nobody. But I asked you to call from since 9. But you call when you could, which was after lunch. And you see this now. So I continue to make things hard for me. When in truth, I can do these things. I'm also trying to live like the Crandons when I'm talkers. So Crandon, they have a vehicle and I still walking or taking a little ride with my husband's bicycle. But when I see Crandon, I make life difficult for him. So I'm there nagging when in truth the bicycles get a good ride. You know, just saying. But these are things that persons place on their platter. And then when you're unable to eat it, you have indigestion. And then you start saying things like marriage. We know that marriage is a lot of work. But you say a lot of negative things about the marriage. Exactly.
That is really vital.
It is. It is. And, you know, on my way here, I was thinking my own thing. But most important about what I was thinking, it was about boundaries. About us setting them and about people around us having them. And knowing when to shut up, when to, even if you're present, stay quiet, you know, or you just don't come over and so on and so forth. I remember a situation, and in this situation, myself and wife was going through something, just talk, but at the time, it wasn't the chummy thing. And so somebody noticed it and thought that they should like try to pull us together. And
Saviors.
if you understand, if I'm saying in my mind, if you understand her, then you will know that she's not going to pretend. Like if she's upset about something, she's upset about it until she would have dealt with the thing. Right? I know this. So then if you come now wanting a photo up and expecting the girl to smile, she's not going to do that.
Right.
And so I know that this is not my time to think. And so when the person was pushing the thing, I am like,
Yeah.
you know? And I feel like those are some of the things we have to protect our relationships from and our marriages from. But let's jump back in the stages that affect us inside. I feel like we too need to protect it by when we recognize that we have these kind of characters to straighten those things out. So we don't have to go through that struggle. Right. Yes, the phase already has brought on us some struggles. Let's deal with those. We really don't need to deal with that one. At least not now.
And as you spoke about the struggles within the marriage, Ezzie, many times we must choose our battles and choose them well. You know, there's no need for unnecessary competition.
Yeah.
So at this particular stage is where a lot of comparing takes place. You know, you can sing. So when I get into the bathroom, I am trying my thing as well. When the truth is, I learned from very early that I'm not a singer. So with my marriage in particular, my husband is from a musical family. And, you know, they're musically inclined. So from the moment we conceived, and like you, we got Janae in the same year. Janae missed the wedding for all good reasons. But you know, these children, when they're born within marriage, they hold the parents up. At least my two hold us up. That we didn't invite them to our wedding. So I told them they were invited, right? But they just weren't in the places where people can see them, you know. So with that being said, in the first year, we had so many things to deal with. And he started speaking music into his children from very early. So when we're singing as a family, for fun's sake, he would stop the song like somebody's off. Start again. So I would sing confidently, yes, because I know I it's my family and I'm singing with. And then he'd tell me, sing a little lower, because kind of throwing it off. But I don't take offense to that, you know. Perhaps if it was not for my maturity, I could have held it, you know, and I go. But then when I'm speaking, when I know there's where my strength lies, I'm not going to use that to belittle him. I'm not going to use it to make him feel lesser than a man. Instead, I use both of our strengths and our weaknesses to balance it off. So, a quick example, last All Year's evening, our children sang, and a woman came up and she's like, "Congratulations, mommy." And I can see where these children got there. You know what, I want to collect it and said, my husband is a musician. I just cheer on and so on. And, you know, he was there smiling, and when the woman left, he's like, "You might as well set the record straight." So we had a joke about it, but I know of cases where persons would hold that, take that compliment, and totally ignore the person who we know it came from. And all these things can add, you know, in marriage, they have a lot of little things that may happen that we overlook. But then when it explodes, people have a way of picking up the tiniest piece of something and putting a microscope over it, and then you realize how much these things impact people. So this particular stage is one that we have to be so careful about, because if this is the determining factor, if you go forward, or if you decide, you know, ain't too far from where I start, just go through the door. It's the middle stage. And we know a lot of times in the middle things, how it happens. You feel most tired, you lose most of what you have, but then it's the resilience that is experienced at this stage can help you to go forward.
Right. Okay. So after the power struggle phase, what is the next phase again?
Stability.
Stability. Okay. So this is where we have an understanding of each other's expectations, your quirks, your nuances, and all of that,
Really
mine,
get you.
and how we make these things work together and merge.
I would call those first 3 stages the foundation for that stability there. For that, because if you remove activities from 1, you stop communicating in 2, and in 3, you stop having those conflicts, then you're unstable.
Right. Yeah.
You have a cycle.
You're not stable. And the thing about life, and I'm glad that Toya mentioned about time frame. Something will give. The bottom of the bucket gonna drop out at some point. Some people can put on many masks, but so much,
Yeah.
When for people who look at Games of Thrones, and the girl that had a different many masks, it came a point and she ran out of mask, and she got caught. And she got a good whipping. There comes a point when you can't put on a mask anymore. When you have to stop and accept. When you have to recognize that this is who I am. This is who I am with.
Right.
I don't want to jump to phase 5.
And it's very, really important for us to appreciate the challenges that come with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes we fight unnecessarily.
Yeah.
It's like trying to put on you have to try putting on your child's clothes at 2, where they won't put it on for themselves. And they were fighting up, and then when they go on, it's like, and what next?
Right.
And then, they look at you as much as say it was this easy, just fix and keep moving. That's how we are sometimes. We fight so unnecessarily that when we need the energy for the later stages, not only the emotional energy, but physically, we won't always be this young.
Yeah.
Right.
Time is going to come where you got help, and they will have to help us too.
Yeah.
So with all of that, when we get to the stability stage, it's then you can rock back and look and see some of the things that you were fighting over, how unnecessary it was. And how I usually sit with my husband, and when we talk and we laugh at stuff, and we're like, look at your younger self. Imagine when you held on to this, Imagine when you thought I couldn't make this for you. And then you tried and come the same way. And it's like, boy, experience really teaches you wisdom, Because when I made roti, he's like, well, he's not Guyanese. So he's saying, this is roti. I have to show you what is roti. So I said, before you show me, and show you check, because if we're speaking about Guyanese roti here, we ain't speaking about soda bake or anything that we could sell. So in his head, it's something that's supposed to be very crispy.
Okay.
So when you check out the roti, you make it now, and he's like, I see what you're saying is the same thing. So I was like, I'm glad you put it to the test, because I know my work here is done since make it. You understand?
Right.
So you have to find, and he's the person, he finds humor in everything. It's not the best quality, but when I say not the best quality, some people imagine you being really, really furious and you're really joking about that.
Right.
I don't like it. But I've grown to appreciate it, and I usually say God has a sense of humor too.
Yeah.
When He approves certain connections and certain activities, we can't see all the benefits, but later as we appreciate it.
Yeah.
And with stability, we get to appreciate those, because that's where it prepares you for the next stage. And ultimately, for the marriage, being able to witness to someone. Because as much as we don't look at marriage as a ministry, it is. Some persons may never meet you, but seeing the way you speak to your spouse will determine their choice, what they do in several aspects of their lives. So it's very necessary for us to remember that as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I find it useful as well to remember that you're supposed to be a teammate and you're not facing off. I think that's really useful for the power struggle phase as well. You're not facing off against the person. You try to come alongside each other and face off against whatever the issues may be.
Right.
And to a certain extent, you gotta keep working on you. You have to. People grow, people change. You grow, you change. They grow, they change.
Yeah.
You have to keep working. It's unhealthy to think that, okay, what I know and have experienced by the time I'm 30, 40 is all I need to know about relationships and life. And sometimes it's by fixing you fix your marriage.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
so true.
Sometimes it's by working on you, your marriage gets better.
You know, that's so true. I think many have used the phrase many times about how you make it in marriage. You have to really be patient and kind and do all these things. But in reality, are we really ready to do it? Like to be forgiving and to compromise. Are we really ready?
Yeah.
Because that road is a very high road, you know. It's a very high road.
Yeah.
And it's one that once you take it, well, if you choose to take it, you might be on that road alone. And so people looking at you say, you're stupid. Me, I would have never do that. And those kind of things you hear. And even to your own self, it could really take so much out of you.
Yeah.
But you're forced to take it because you have to prove what will be in stage 5, that you're committed here, yeah? Because now, in the sexy body anymore, in the excitement about just knowing this person anymore, in just about the curiosity and all of those things and all of that anymore. It's you've seen all of these other things already. You've seen all those things already. And so now you have to make an intelligent decision. Intentionally, because I want to go back to what my friend Matthias Christopher had said to me a long time. He said, love is not just a feeling. It's 75% thinking and the 25 feeling. But people think they know how you feel, that really is love. You have to be intentional. And so now you're choosing. And it's at this point you recognize that they need to put us through all of that long thing of keeping a wedding. Remember back in the day, once people know each other, they start the stuff and they move along. So you waste a lot of money, from the engagement that you otherwise didn't need to go through. You hear what I'm telling you? You choose, and I guess I could understand why in some cultures this woman and this man was given to this person, and these people make that thing work. You hear me? But we now have 5 stages, beautiful stages to go through, which is very helpful for those people who have researched the structure of the relationship, marriage, and so on. And that should be very helpful for us now. Because those people didn't have the luxury of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? They just know that they got to just make it work.
Yeah.
And in a Hindu society, when a girl, even if the guy is abusive, they don't even leave because the culture pressures them to stay. But society has evolved, civilization, and therefore, but that's another conversation for another time. But just that we gotta now appreciate how well off we are to really make marriage work because of all of these injections. Because of the study of the area and so on. And then before we go on, we must inject here how our relationship with God fits into all of this. Because all our actions in those 5 stages are not in isolation of our spirituality.
Sure.
And our need for spiritual guidance or or not just the need for spiritual guidance, but recognizing that we may need it sometime.
Yeah.
Because because I might read a book, I might read how much Nancy Van Pelt and listen to Harley and all of that. But
application.
That's another story for another time. So we really have to zero in on on the different aspects. And when you mentioned about knowing yourself, when you reach those stages, if you are not at that level to deal with what is required, then you make it more chaotic too. So we really got to put those band-aids, those treatments and those little things and get them sorted out.
What really stood out to me that you mentioned, Latoya, was the likelihood of cycles. If you don't figure out how to navigate that disillusionment and power struggle phase, you can be left stuck there for like the entire duration of your marriage. Always in the cycle going over, and you just.
And the power struggle stage for some people can get physical.
Yeah.
So while we are never suggesting the use of violence, that's never an option. Some persons, while they may not get physically violent, they get emotionally violent. Some persons, the things that they say to their spouses, it's just as equivalent as if you take a knife and wound them.
Right.
So it's a case where we must understand what makes us uncomfortable, which I think boundaries is a section by itself, because some persons were never raised to appreciate boundaries, never raised to know what are boundaries, so they have always been just permeating people's lives, and because of persons not wanting to be very forthright, they have been passive in the way they deal with things. That's why I appreciate being open. It may come across as harsh to some people, but in time to come, these people who may take it the harsh way would appreciate you being this way with them.
Right.
You know, we never want to hear the truth once it's not what we want.
Yeah.
But then we appreciate the truth when we're surrounded by deceit. As harsh as the truth is, we would appreciate it then. We should not be in a position where we appreciate something that doesn't exist. We should appreciate things for what they are. Similarly, appreciate people for who they are. And in appreciating persons for who they are, appreciating what they bring, it helps us as we go through the stages of marriage, because it's necessary for us to understand and appreciate, and these things help us grow. And of course, it's not a case where you wait from stages 1 to 5 before having children. When we plant these seeds of the wrong trait in our children that are residual of the stages, we end up having thorns being grown or raised within our children's lives. And these are carried over into their lives, not necessarily their marriages. Correct. So we have to be careful that we are not really planting these things, whether directly or indirectly. And it is usually said, and I would have tested it and proven it, once we keep God at the top, we get closer drawn to each other, with the spouses being at the bottom, if we were to look at a triangle. So God being here, and we two come from two different backgrounds. But the closer we get to God, we get to each other. There's no way we're keeping God at the top and we want to get close to each other. It's going to happen without Him. Some persons use other beings and other images as God. That is why when they get to a point, the image, the object, whatever it is they're using at the top, ends up presenting a block. That block can be a family, it can be a work, it can be a place, it can be an imagination, whatever the case is. But with God, regardless of how close and how far up we go, even when He's in the midst, we can still interact, we can still connect. And that is very crucial for us to appreciate about involving Him within our marriage.
Guys, thank you. I am of the belief that our time has expired, but even as you continue to speak, I had other thoughts, but we can't time-wise. But I really appreciate you guys for being here and sharing your thoughts and your insights on these stages. I think this is something we can probably revisit and delve more deeply into. I think all of the topics, humans are so nuanced in our own ways. But I hope that you're able to take away the fact that Marriage does have stages like every aspect of life, and it's the work that we're willing to put into it on ourselves that help to make the quality of the stage worth the effort.
Yeah.
So continue to take care and be blessed. We will see you on the next one.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. Thank you too.
Bye.
Pro Media Professional Live Streaming Service. Experience the difference when it's live. Pro Media provides you a complete range of live and demand streaming solutions no matter what your special event may be. Weddings, funerals, concerts, press conferences, conventions, seminars, workshops, meetings, religious events, and more. For more information, call 669-5376 or 609-5264. Experience the difference when it's live.